have also done so much work on the ground. Like you hear so many stories, but at the same time, I know through your work, you were running from one office to another office, trying to get the documentation for those survivors who lost everything after ISIS attack. And you were trying to get them the passport, Iraqi citizenship, and all this documentation. And it was a path for them to get to another country to have another life. Can you tell us some of these stories? Like I would love you to share some of these stories. Like I know that some of the stories you cried with because of the joy, some of the stories you cried with because you were so like impacted by, you were so in grief. And there are some stories, like I know, like so many people's like similar to you, they offered a lot of help, even like through you they offered some help to the Yazidis.
Yeah,
You like
yeah.
to remember those people.
Um, as I say, I never had a day where I thought this was going to be the work I do the rest of my life. Every day I was so just mentally torn up and exhausted, I was going to quit. But to start out, I wasn't in Iraq, I was in Turkey. There were 25,000 Yazidis who came from Iraq to Turkey, and they were dispersed throughout southeast Turkey into 12 camps in 12 different cities. There was a camp of 4,500 Yazidis in Shirnak, Turkey, where I lived. So I was going to that camp every day and trying to just see what they needed. And I started writing their stories. That's the first thing I did. And then someone said, we don't have anything to cook with, because the camp had only been open 2 months. The Kurds were running it. The Turkish government never helped them with any money. So they said there's mothers with babies and they can't warm their milk. And I thought, well, I could buy them little round burners to warm the milk on. I went into town and I bought 13, which was all that the shop had. They had 13 and they were less than $5 each, and I bought them all. And I went back to camp and I said, no, we don't let anyone know we have these. We're going to go into one of the rooms. It was an old army barracks they'd fixed up. We're going to go into one of the rooms and test each of these to make sure they work. But the word got out. We did test them. The word got out. And when we went out to go find the mothers with little infant babies, I was inundated with about 100 people. It was 10 people deep around me, all the mothers, and they were holding up their kids, even 6-year-old kids say, I got a baby here. And there was a very old woman with a kid, maybe 5 or 6, with no teeth. And it was sad. She wanted one of these. And I had to say no to her. And it really, really shook me up. I thought in the beginning that giving out aid would make me feel good, that it was like a nice, feel good thing. And then I learned out that distributing aid rarely makes you feel good. It really is an upsetting thing because you never have enough to go around, and it's never fair. It can never be fair because you can never have enough to meet the need. There was a woman who read my article and saw the picture that I posted with the article. And she and her husband live in California. And she tracked down my name. My email address was easy from the article. And she wrote to me and said, we are the children of Jewish survivors from the Holocaust from Nazi Germany. And we saw what you were doing, and I'd like to know, could I send you $100? It's not very much, but we're, retired. And would you spend it for the people in this camp? So, okay, she sent it to me to my PayPal account, and I went and I ordered from the store another 50 stovetop burners. And that's how I got started. So I was never looking for it. People were pushing me and pushing me. And then the more that I posted, the more that people came and donated. The second time around, when I brought those 50 burners, I'd learned about distribution. The camp manager and the camp guards had told all the people who come to distribute, please let us help you. You can do it. You can hand it to someone, but please let us control the situation because we know how to do it. So the second time, I just gave them in the warehouse. I said, you figure out who needs them. I don't want to be part of that because the camp managers know who the neediest families are and who had the babies. It began like that. Finally, I went to Iraq after that. In early 2015, I went to Dawood, Iraq, because Yazidis were begging me by then to come there from my postings of what was going on in Turkey. I went first, before I dug right into the work, I went to Soleimani, and I met two Yazidi judges there. What's his name? Judge Osman, I believe he was. They were the only two Yazidi judges in Iraq. And I said, I'd like your advice. He said, the stories you were writing are nice. They're human interest stories and it gets people's attention, but that's not the way you need to write if you're collecting evidence for a court, for prosecutions later. And he showed me a style of writing that was totally different for what I was used to. It was like writing a police report, basically. You put down the interviewer's name, the translator, the date, everything. You write it from first person. I did this. They came to my door. They shot my husband. And the person signs it like a police statement. He said, this is how you have to write, Amy. So that is how I wrote my book. Half of my book are witness testimonies of terrible things that happened that ISIS did to them. And I have to really thank the Yazidis because they were brave enough to let me use their real names. This is not a book of fiction. These are men and women and children. There were only, I think, two who were tried to be used as child soldiers by ISIS. And for their protection, I didn't use their name. And there were two other people whose families could be harmed because they were actually Sunni Arabs who fought against ISIS. And their village lost 200 Arabs. ISIS killed them. And for the safety of those people, I didn't use their names either. But for all the other Yazidis, I used their real names. And that began my project. He said, here's what you need to do. Go to Dawood and sort out the problem with Yazidis getting their IDs and passports because they can't get them. They won't give them to them. So that's what I did. I went to Dawood. I met one woman. I had known her whole family in the camp in Sharnak, and I knew that the sister was missing with the two little kids. I got a call from them one day and they said, Amy, she's back, she's back, she's back. They didn't know she was getting back. She actually did escape on her own and got back. So the family rushed there from Sharnak and I rushed there, Vian. And Vian was back 3 days with her kids after I think it was 11 months with ISIS. And I gathered in the room to take her story. The way that the women give their stories when they're returning from captivity, first off, no men are allowed in the room. Not their brothers, not a husband, not a father. This is a woman's thing because they suffered from severe sexual abuse.
Yeah.
Right. In that room were 17 young women. Some were teenagers, some young mothers with like 1-year-old infants because their older children had been taken by ISIS, but they got to keep their babies. And those 17 women had preceded Vian in escaping. So they wanted to hear her story. So Vian told the story in a nutshell because she said it would take her 10 years to tell me what happened to her.
Yeah.
And I said at the end of it, what is it you most need right now? She said, I don't need a house. I'm in this caravan. I'm with my family. I'm safe again. I don't need clothes, although she was still wearing only the black dress. That's all she had that she escaped in. And I don't need money. She said, what I need to do is leave Iraq forever and never come back. That's what I need to do. And all the other women there agreed that's what they needed to do. So I went out the next day and I bought 17 big shoulder bags. So when they got on that plane to Germany, they could put their things in and go. And I started my passport project. I have to take the Yazidis to 6 offices 2 times, at least, to get to where they get a passport in their hand. Iraq has 2 different kinds of IDs, and they need both. They first had to get a police report because a crime had happened to them, so they had to go to the police and report it. It had to be written up. They did do that, but the police didn't give them the report. So we had to take them back to the police to get the report. Then we had to take these women whose husbands had been killed to the court and get a document from the court. Because in any country in the world, you can't just take your children out of the country without parental consent of the other parent. Well, the other parent, the father, was dead. ISIS had killed him. So we had to get the judge to give custody to the women. In Iraq, the way the law works is children belong to the father and his family, his parents, his brothers and sisters. The children do not belong to the mother and do not share the mother's name. So in order for the mother to take her children with her to Germany or to do anything, if she wanted to sign a lease or rent an apartment, do anything, she needed to have this document from the court. So we did that. Then we got the 2 IDs. And it's 2 trips to the office, one to apply, one to go pick it up. And then finally we got to the passport stage. At that time, it was a 1-year wait to get a passport. And then it increased to 3-year wait because of all the displaced people. 500,000 people all wanted their passports. So over this 6-year period, we're now coming up on 7 years, I've gotten over 700, maybe 1,000 passports and all the preceding documents that it took to get to the passport stage. And most of those were for the Yazidi women and girls and children who survived from ISIS captivity. There were some people who were had been interpreters for the U.S. Army who could go to the U.S. I got their passports. There were some people some families whose houses had been exploded by ISIS. They had nowhere to return to. I could get their passports. And there were some people who had family members who had been killed. And those were the categories of people who didn't have to wait the 1 or 3 years, that I can go right in within a week's appointment and take them in. That's been my main project, and I raised funds to do all that. I paid for the taxi, the staff, and the government fees. All of those people got asylum in other countries. Unfortunately, 1,000 or 2,000 people is just a drop in the bucket compared to 400,000 displaced Yazidis. So the problem goes on, and every day, like today, every day people are begging me to help get them asylum, but I can't get them asylum. I can get passports, but I can't get them a visa or asylum in another country. I continue to try to advocate for that, but I personally cannot do it. Now, I'm sure you've got a lot of thoughts running through your mind about this talk about IDs and how to get out of Iraq. So let's hear what you think about this subject.
So like, I know that just for one of us or for one family, it was like a really hard work to get your IDs and passports in Iraq. Like even for my family, it took me like about 4 months to get my family's passports. You have like help over like 700 people, and I know and I understand how much work it needs to be done for that.